What's up? What's up? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Real Estate Happy Hour Weekly live stream. First time we're doing a live stream, and I've been spending all week trying to get this right. So if I hit a wrong video or hit a wrong button or something like that, just let me know. Anyway, make sure that you can comment, you can interact. It's also live on YouTube. But I've been getting a lot of feedback from my reels and clips on the Real Estate Happy Hour Weekly, and I just thought I'd try a live stream so we can interact at the same time. What is the Real Estate Happy Hour Weekly? Not only am I going to be talking about a specific real estate topic, but we're also going to talk about trending social media, what's going on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and things like that. So, so thank you if you're joining me. If you're not joining me today, maybe you'll listen to the podcast. If you do listen to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, make sure you go ahead and mash those 5 stars for trying. And if you watch it on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and make sure that you help me out. That way, help the algorithms get on it. So it is called Happy Hour. Typically, we have a drink, but we are doing Dry January, my wife and I. But full disclosure, we're not going to do the full month because, well, the reason why we're not going to do full month because we were invited to a party mid-month. So we're going to do that. And we also have a couple of other functions that we can't go to these parties and say, hey, it's Dry January because it's kind of lame. So what we're going to do is participate and just end it. It's gonna be over. We're just gonna get rid of it. So once again, Dry January. So today's happy hour, I'm not having a real drink. I'm having a soft drink and maybe a Diet Coke after that. So how's it going out there? I hope you are having a great 2024 so far. And if you aren't, what are we supposed to do? But we are going to get to the HOA topic, which is the real estate portion of the podcast. But I wanted to start off talking about the NFL. Couple of issues have come up in the last few weeks about the NFL. Last week, I had put a post on Facebook about Sean Payton and his relationship with Russell Wilson, and I was like dead set against it. I was thinking, you know, I don't think Sean Payton has liked Russell Wilson from the day he signed that contract with the Broncos. He wanted that quarterback gone, and you could tell by the way he's interacted with him. He berated him on the sideline. He yelled at him. And to me, that's just not good leadership. And it really kind of pissed me off. I was like, why would you talk to a grown man like that on national television in front of everyone? And then a few weeks later, um, it was discovered that he had asked Russell Wilson to take a seat. He was benching him unless he got rid of his injury clause. And that injury clause basically said that if he got hurt during the season, they would owe him $41 million. And I think that Sean Payton didn't like having his hands tied to a clause like that when he's not the one that signed the contract. But it has been an NFL story, and I wanted to know what you thought. Um, Here's Ryan Clark from ESPN. He's talking about it. Listen to what he says.
Sean Payton has behaved as a thug since he became the coach of the Denver Broncos. Immediately when he gets in the building, he starts to undercut Russell Wilson personally and professionally from his first press conference on. He tells Russell Wilson, you have to stop kissing babies, stop behaving as if you're running for office. Nobody kissed more babies in New Orleans than Drew Brees. We watched Sean Payton in New Orleans for a decade and a half, never treat his quarterback this way. And so now as you move through and you hear about the phone call, you hear about talking to his representatives about restructuring or doing whatever they wanted him to do to the contract, this was just a means to an end for Sean Payton. This was going to happen. I don't believe there was a thing Russell Wilson could do to make Sean Payton like him. Let's hold Sean Payton to some sort of professional accountability. His behavior as the head coach of the Denver Broncos is unacceptable. Russell Wilson takes a hell of a lot of heat. The humility that Russell Wilson has shown, the professionalism that Russell Wilson has shown inside of that building while being treated that way by that man, all I got to say to Sean Payton is you lucky you had the right one.
Yeah, so Ryan Clark was really pissed. And like I said, my point is that you don't talk to a man like that. You don't berate him like that. You don't make him feel less than. This guy he was on course to be a Hall of Famer. Got sidetracked by the Denver Broncos. Not their fault. All the blame's on him. But he's just someone who's won a Super Bowl. I believe he's been an MVP. I can't remember, but he was held in high regard in the NFL. And for Sean Payton to come in and treat him like that, listen to what Dan Orlovsky, I think you say his name is. I apologize if I say his name wrong, but check this out.
The way that they've handled it has been unprofessional, and classless. Listen, if you want to bench him, you're absolutely entitled to do that, both as the head coach, general manager, and the owner of the football team. To go to him and say, we want you to alter your contract that we signed off on, or else we are going to threaten to bench you and/or bench you, is not a way that you handle business in the NFL. It's certainly not a way that you handle a guy that has been a pro and a Super Bowl champion for 10 plus years. It's not a way that you handle a person that was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And it's for sure not the way you handle someone who's a Walter Payton Man of the Year. This is not about feelings. No one's going to feel bad for Russell Wilson because of his money, okay? This is about the way that you treat someone that in many ways has always been a good representative of your organization and your league.
Yeah, so again, that whole thing has basically Russell Wilson's gone. He's no longer going to be on the Denver Broncos, and it is what it is. But I just thought it could have been handled better by the organization. I thought it could have been handled better by Sean Payton. Tell me, guys, tell me what you think about that. It's my opinion that that was just handled poorly. The other NFL topic I want to discuss happened this weekend, and Jameis Winston. So it was the Saints versus the Falcons. And Jameis Winston, who's been a good guy, man, he's such a nice kid. He's a young man. He's always handled things the right way off the field. Hasn't been in trouble, which is great. He's had some struggles in his gameplay, a lot of turnovers, but he can throw that ball. He's a good quarterback. So this weekend, the Saints were up on the Falcons like 41 to a lot. They were just up by a lot of points. And they caught an interception, and they were all the way down on the 1 yard line. And the Saints coach called victory formation, which means you go out there, you get ready to just hike the ball and take a knee. That's called the victory formation. Everybody who watches football knows victory formation, it's over. And the Saints running back needed one more touchdown, just one more touchdown for the season. I think it was a Saints record, or maybe it was incentive. I don't know the full story. All I know is the play that went in was victory formation, and Jameis Winston decided to hand the ball off to the running back, and he ran into the end zone for a touchdown. And the coach was surprised. The Falcons coach was just like livid. He was pissed. It was just so livid. And then so they asked the Saints coach, is like, yo, what was up with that? That was kind of bush league. What was up with that? He said, I didn't know about it. That's not the play that went in. We called victory formation, which tells us as football fans, the quarterback changed the coach's play and decided to do something that was bush league, that was going to give the team a bad reputation. It was ugly. It was just really uncalled for. And Jameis Winston basically said that we made a team decision that we were going to allow him to score his touchdown. Shannon Sharp went off today. He was like, if Jameis Winston was on my team, I would cut him right away. Number two, he said, if I was in that huddle, I would have jumped off sides just so he couldn't get the touchdown. But I too, being a former military guy, someone who was also extremely disciplined by a father. My father was very strict. And if I disobeyed a rule, there was trouble to be had. And so for someone to go in to a game like that and just listen, quarterbacks call audibles and change plays all the time. This is not that. This is a quarterback supposed to be in a victory formation and just end the game respectfully. That's called sportsmanship. So it's totally different. For you to change that and run in a touchdown when the defense wasn't even prepared, that is bush league, and there's no place for it in football, youth, Pop Warner, NFL, college, just nowhere, high school. Can you imagine a high school quarterback doing that? What would happen to that high school quarterback? I don't know. So I agree with Shannon Sharp on ESPN today. He lost it. He's like, if that was my QB, if Jameis Winston was my quarterback, he'd be cut. To just change the play like that and do something as bush league as he did. Tell me what your thoughts are. I really appreciate that. And we'll go from there. All right. So the topic of the month, the year, the decade is Cat Williams. The Cat Williams interview on Club Shay Shay, which is Shannon Sharp's podcast. And I think someone's saying something to me here. Anyway, yeah. So the Shannon Sharp podcast, I apologize. I was getting sidetracked by something on Facebook. Anyway, so Cat Williams was on there. So let me tell you, Cat Williams, he's been a comedian for many, many, many years. Okay. Some people have just discovered him. Some people didn't know. My wife said, I don't even know who Cat Williams is. Anyway, he's been around as long as the bigs. And I guess what I don't want to talk about, because you can watch enough reels and clips about all the people that he called out, the Steve Harveys, the Cedric the Entertainers, the Kevin Harts, and he just got real about all those guys. I don't want to talk about that. There is reel after reel about all the people that he roasted. And the reason I don't want to talk about it, because not that I have any affiliation with those comedians that he mentioned, but it's because it's basically taking someone's career and what they've accomplished and basically saying they didn't deserve it or they didn't put in the work for it. Now, he talked about some other things like Illuminati and cabals and stuff like that, about how people have done things, with Harvey Weinstein and other big Hollywood and big media, producers and moneymakers like P. Diddy and stuff like that. What goes on in Hollywood is we're so far removed from that we can't even imagine what kind of deals are given out. He was even talking about Ludacris and all kinds of things like that. But what I want to talk about is imposter syndrome, okay? Because we work very hard. We put in a lot of work. We go through the mental anguish of trying to tell ourselves that we belong. That when you work hard, you put in the hours, you put in the time, you have to make yourself believe that you belong. So that's why I really don't want to validate Cat Williams' his whole soliloquy about who deserves what in Hollywood, which comedian deserves accolades and praise, because those I've been following Kevin Hart since he first got on the scene, and for him to say that Kevin Hart doesn't deserve what he has, even if, okay, so what did he say about what's the term? Um, Luck is opportunity and preparedness. Well, even if someone does give you an opportunity, you still have to be prepared. So if let's say Kevin Hart was given something or he was given a leg up, he still had to be prepared to do what he's doing. And he's big. He's one of the top 3 entertainers in the world. You take Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, that's like the Mount Rushmore of comedy right now. And that will change. At one time, it was Cedric the Entertainer and Steve Harvey and Bernie Mac. So I'm never going to take anything away from those guys. And to make it personal, I've had some pretty decent jobs or careers, and people have told me, you don't belong in the room, or whose ass did you kiss to get here, or whose penis did you suck to get here, or things like that. So yeah, it's like when you say something like that about people, it's not cool. So I don't agree with, like I said, Cat Williams can say what he wants. And he may have some, because he's inside the industry, maybe he has some real reasons for saying it. But I'm not going to sit here today on this podcast and give it any credence or validity. But I do want to talk about some of the things that he mentioned in the podcast that hasn't gone viral. He did talk about race and how race plays a big part in our worldview and how it shouldn't, because now he's religious. So there's race and there's God's way. So you have to determine which way you're going to go. I really like that when a decision is being made, is it the right decision or is it a race decision? And he said a lot of times, because we don't think like that, we may pick the easy way out. The lazy way out is to pick a race decision. Like, I didn't get that because I'm black, or I didn't get, now you even hear, I didn't get that because I'm white. And sometimes you have to wonder if it's a race decision or if it's a right decision. He called it a God's decision, but I wanted people who aren't religious or who don't believe in spirituality or Christianity to look at it that way, that right ways and race way. He's also, another thing that stood out to me, that he adopted 7 children. All right. That part to me was huge. They didn't put that part hasn't gone viral. And he was asked, why would you adopt 7 children, especially with no wife, single father, adopt 7 children? First of all, I'm surprised that he was even able to accomplish that, but he did. So he has adopted 7 children. And here's why he did. Why did he do that? So he said, I wanted to be looked at favorably by God. And if it's a way to give charity or be philanthropic, what better way is it to do than adopt children or children in need? So I thought that was awesome. He also talked about the trappings of Hollywood and the mass media industry. And I thought about, wow, that is crazy. Like, that's something that most of us will never, ever be privy to. We won't know. If there is an Illuminati, if there are cabals, if there's skull and bones or inside organizations, these are some things that most of us, the average American or the average citizen, will never find out. These small, secretive groups of people that elevate people to different heights and careers. I just thought that was really, really interesting, and how that goes on. So when you go, what happened to Chris Tucker, or whatever happened to this actor or that actor, or where's Kevin Spacey? Like, we know that Kevin Spacey was canceled, but there are machinations in Hollywood to make sure that he will get his position back. Robert Downey Jr. fell. How did Robert Downey Jr. bounce back? You know, there's all these people. There's the Leonardo DiCaprios, the Tom Cruises, who is involved in Scientology. There's just this whole segment of Hollywood and the media, the P. Diddy. P. Diddy. Some people, okay, perfect. What's the guy's name? Peterson? I forgot his name. But the guy who just was found guilty of assaulting his girlfriend. Okay, so that guy must not have had the right insiders, right? Where P. Diddy was accused of sexual assault for a long period of time. He settled it. He's still P. Diddy. No one's even talking about it. So it's just interesting how he did talk about the mass media industry and the trappings of Hollywood, and how there's these groups and these secret groups and these Illuminatis. And I know sometimes we poo-poo stuff like that, but you have to wonder why some people are put on, how some people survive and some people don't. And like I said, I mentioned Tom Cruise. He's been one that's very well known to be involved in Scientology and groups like that. Another thing that stood out to me, he said, "I am the richest comedian in Hollywood." I said, what does that mean? He goes, "Don't look at my net worth." He said, "I got that on me," which was kind of funny. I laughed at that. You know, when you can Google or search someone's net worth. Chris Wright's net worth $2, right? Kevin Hart's net worth, 56 million or whatever that number is. So he say, "Don't look up my net worth because I got that on me. I got more money than you can imagine." But he wasn't only talking about money. He was also talking about blessings. And he threw it in there real quick. And he said Jesus was poor. So I just thought about that. And I was like, he just threw in some really, really good nuggets that didn't go viral. And they stood out to me. I like the fact that he produces and promotes himself. So there's a lot of comedians who will sign multi-million-dollar marketing contracts. They do commercials, they do endorsements. People sponsor their concerts. Kevin Hart's concert sponsored by Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever. Even Michael Jackson used to have the concert sponsored by Pepsi, and they would give him $1 billion to do a world tour. Cat Williams would say, "I don't do that. I promote myself. I market myself. That way I don't owe anybody. No one can cancel me." When Kanye was talking about being a billionaire, "I'm a billionaire." And then Chappelle even said it. And next day, he was no longer a billionaire because he depended on Adidas for that Yeezy money. So I just like the fact that Cat Williams is to say, as long as I promote myself and as long as I produce myself, I am not beholden to anyone to act a certain way, be a certain way. I can say no. And I really, really like that. That's a lesson in business. He's also very self-reliant, doesn't depend on anybody. And we just talked about that. And he doesn't need permission to do anything. I heard there's this schism going on between Stephen A. Smith and Jason Whitlock. And Jason Whitlock is a hardcore conservative. He's been kicked off of every mainstream media network you can imagine. He was on Fox Sports. He was on ESPN. He was on Outkick. And everyone he's been booted off. He's just, because he's extremely independent. He does what he wants. He says what he wants. I actually like him, even though he's hardcore conservative, much more conservative than I am. I think a lot of his thoughts are misogynistic and very 1950s. But besides that, there's this thing going on between him and Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith basically called him a fat bastard and called him the seed of the devil. And he goes, one day, Stephen A. Smith said this, and I'm paraphrasing, that one day I'm going to get permission from my network and all my sponsors. Just give me 1 hour to forgive me for the things I'm about to say, and I'm going in on Jason Whitlock. I'm going to lambast that fat bastard, whatever. He didn't say it by name, but everybody knew he was talking about. All that said, Jason Whitlock said, "Yeah, that's because you're the slave and your network is the master and you can't do whatever you want, but I can." And Jason Whitlock comes at him hard because he's independent. he's not beholden to anyone. And that's what there's a lot to be said for not having to answer to someone to speak your piece or use your freedom of speech and have it be effective. So that's something that resonated with me with Cat Williams talked about that, because there was a time in 2015, 2016 that I would say things politically that would get me in trouble. People called me a pot stirrer, or I would say something that was at the time anti-Trump or whatever the case may be. And you can lose friends like that. You can lose followers. You could lose business. That means you are beholden to something. You might be beholden to your business. You might be beholden to your, another whoever you're. Even though I'm a real estate agent, but what I say could affect how people feel about my company, be it Keller Williams or Coldwell Banker or Berkshire Hathaway, whatever the large companies are. So there may be brokers who say, I don't want that guy on my team because he speaks too incendiary about politics and I don't want anything to do with that. I'm a long way from that. I have matured in how I speak to the public about politics, and how I speak my mind, because I think as old as I am, I'm still learning. And I've learned that there's just some things that you just need to be careful about, because you're not only affecting your well-being, but also the people around you. And speaking of that, as the new elections are coming up and Trump's about to take the podium, we all know he could be a fire starter. Just be careful on how you speak. Yes, you have freedom of speech, but there's also there's no freedom of consequences. You can suffer. All right, so I just wanted to put that out there. And we're going to get to the Homeowners Association topic very shortly. A couple more trending items I wanted to discuss was the movie I watched last week, Saltburn. I was going to show you a trailer on that, but I'm not going to show you a trailer. Just watch the trailer, Saltburn. If you don't know how I'm saying it, Saltburn, Saltburn. And it's a very, very strange flick. I highly recommend you watch the trailer and then watch the movie. In short, it's just about this young man who goes to Oxford, and he meets a very wealthy friend who's also a student. And they become friends. And the rich guy says, "Hey, why don't you come to my house for the holiday at Saltburn," which is the name of the residence. And just a whole bunch of weird shit just start taking place. And I think you're going to like it. But that is my selection, my pick of the week, Saltburn. I think the last episode I talked about May, December, but this is the one for this time. Did you guys watch the Golden Globes last night? It had to be, for me, I love the nominations. Succession is one of my favorite shows, so I was glad that won a lot of awards. Finally, I think the show's been on 5-6 seasons, and finally these people are getting their just due. The show is so good. It's really, really great, and I'm glad it won Best Drama Series and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to talk about that. I just wanted to give a shout out to Succession. More important, Joe Coy was the host, the comedian host. He was horrible. Let alone the sound for the production was bad. It sounded like it was really hollow. But yeah, it was just not good. But his jokes were just dry. And then every time he told a bad joke and no one laughed, he blamed the writers. He goes, "I didn't write that." But then if someone laughed, he go, "I wrote that one." So you know what, Joe Coy, please don't invite him back. Bring back Ricky Gervais, even though he fried you guys. He fried everybody in the room. But Ricky Gervais is just super funny. I'd like him to come back to the Golden Globes. The Golden Globes is like one of my favorite award shows every year. And I just thought Joe Coy and the sound ruined it. And did you guys see when he said something about Taylor Swift? Okay, I'm not going to make this a whole Taylor Swift show or talk long about the commentary, but I will say, if your wife or girlfriend ever looks at you, or any woman for that matter, looks at you the way Taylor Swift looked at Joe Coy after he told that poor joke, you're in trouble. That look was like, I felt it through the screen. And now when she looked at him, she like licked her lips and took a drink of her champagne. I just thought of the Kermit the Frog tea sipping, memes. But that was pretty funny. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get into our Homeowners Association subject. And before we do that, I solicited the help. I didn't really solicit, but John Oliver, HBO, last week with John Oliver, this week or whatever that show is called, really weird name. British guy, very, very funny. Believe it or not, he did a whole segment on homeowners associations. And I'm going to play you some clips from his show, and then we're going to talk about homeowners association. But what's great about it is that, no, homeowners, before I start, I want to preface by saying that this is not to say anything disparaging about homeowners associations. At least I'm not going to say anything disparaging about homeowners associations. John Oliver did. But I'm just want to let people know that if you decide to move into a house that has a homeowners association and there's homeowners association fees, make sure you read the bylaws and the governing documents and all that kind of stuff prior to signing the contract to buy. All right? Because homeowners associations, and they vary in price. They can be very low, very high. But I just want to, as a real estate agent, my customers have asked me, what do you think about buying a condo? Or this development is good, but it has a homeowners association. What's your thoughts on that? And my thoughts is this is particularly for first-time home buyers, that every dollar you spend towards principal and interest and taxes should go towards building equity in your home. All right. I want to repeat what I'm saying. Every dollar that you spend every month on your mortgage payment, principal, interest, and homeowners insurance and all that kind of stuff and taxes should be going towards the house and building equity in your home. So I guess what I'm saying is that if the homeowners insurance is $200 a month, that's $2,400 a year that's not going towards the equity in the house. What it's doing is it's lawn maintenance and I don't know, maybe a gym or a tennis court or a swimming pool, maybe a Christmas party, whatever it is. But if you don't need those things, if you don't need someone to mow your lawn or remove your snow, then you don't really need a homeowners association. Yes, you may work 70-hour work weeks. You don't have time for all that stuff. So maybe a homeowners association would be for you. But really, really, really watch the price and what they cost. If you're only paying, I don't know, $127 a year, go ahead, by all means. But do you really need the tennis courts? Do you need the basketball courts? Do you need the swimming pools? You may not. And if you don't, and you're paying $250 or $200 a month, or even $150 a month, that's all extra money that could be going towards the equity and the principal of your property. Now, like I said, there are people out there who want homeowners association fees, but you're going to see as we talk about this that there are also people who don't want them. Like there are some states like Florida where almost 80% of their residents have HOAs, which means it's almost unavoidable in some locations. So we want to keep that in mind. I want to play one of these clips first. I just want to, here we go.
29% of the US population lives in a community association. As of all the new single-family homes sold in 2021, 82% were in an HOA. That's up from around just 40% in 1990, which is pretty remarkable, given that when one local station asked viewers how they felt about their HOA, the results were nearly universally negative, with one notable exception.
This was a rare comment. I like our HOA. I guess I'm the lucky one. But it was quickly followed with, don't count yourself lucky too soon. Every HOA is just one vote away from hellish nightmares.
Wow. One vote away from hellish nightmares is a pretty intense comment. It's also, incidentally, the DNC's sole campaign message for the last two elections. So if they are this widely used and this widely loathed, tonight, let's look at HOAs.
Yeah, so again, John Oliver, he's so funny. But, he says that it's funny. He's adding some levity to the situation, but it's true. So And I want to put this in words. So what is an HOA? It's a homeowners association. It's not for profit organizations, not 501c3s though, but they are not for profit organizations because they are tax exempt. They're established by developers and communities of homeowners to manage shared spaces, enforce rules, and maintain property values within a specific neighborhood. These communities can be condos, townhouses, planned developments, or even some single family home neighborhoods. Memberships in an HOA is mandatory. Keep that in mind for all homeowners within its boundaries. All right. So make sure that you understand that. The fees are recurring. Sometimes they're monthly, sometimes they're quarterly, and sometimes they're even annual. Okay. So make sure that you understand that they are recurring. So yeah, you want to make sure that you totally you get that. Give me 1 second here. I had some technical difficulty. Want to make sure we fix that. All right. What else? So HOA fees are recurring. We talked about that. Oh, and these fees they can actually be very significant depending on where you are, what state you are, what development you are in, what community you're in. So what factors go into HOAs? Location. All right. Housing costs and expenses differ, based on the region or whatever neighborhood they're in. There's also what amenities. I just talked about amenities that are on HOA campuses. Sometimes there's tennis courts, there's swimming pools, there's gyms, basketball courts. Now these days, pickleball. Everyone's in. Oh, this new development's putting up a pickleball court. So that may say that you want to pay more in HOA. What property type is it? Is it a condo? Condos typically have higher fees than single family homes due to shared building maintenance. All right, so they have to do the whole building. And then what is the size of the community? Are there 256 houses in this development, or are there 20 to 30? The more houses there are, sometimes the less the HOA fees there are, so they can share among the whole community. All right. So what do HOA fees cover? Common areas, landscaping, pools, parks, playgrounds, other shared spaces. Like I said, the tennis courts and things like that. Some HOAs will pay for certain utilities. I was at one building. They say, "Oh, we get free cable television." Well, it's not really free because it's in your HOA fee, but they feel they don't have an extra expense for cable television. There's an apartment complex in a town nearby where no one pays electric because the entire development is solar, which is pretty cool. All right. Then there's building and infrastructure repairs. HOAs can fund maintenance and repairs of shared structures like roofs, roads, and walkways. Now, here's the one that gets people a lot. There are administrative costs, which covers the salaries of HOA staff, covers legal fees in case the development's sued for some reason, insurance, and other administrative expenses. By the way, so the residents actually get to vote on HOA members. So make sure that if you're going to be paying these people, make sure you have a say in who's going to be representing you on the HOA. All right. Some additional things to know: HOA rules and restrictions. So HOAs generally have rules and restrictions governing things like property upkeep, exterior maintenance, noise levels, parking, pet ownership, and the homeowners must abide by these rules. So for me, particularly if you're going to be a first-time home buyer, do you want to be under rules and guidelines, particularly if you just left your parents' home, right? You were already under their roof. Now you're under HOA's roof. Basically, they're telling you what you can do, how loud you can play music. Can you have a pet? How high your fence must be? Can it be a fence you can see through and not see through? Can you own a pig or something like that? Whatever you want. Can I have chickens? Because of the HOA, can I even paint my house the color that I want to paint it? Can I have a blue door or a black door, or must my door be brown or yellow or white? So there are rules to can I put a flag? Like you go by, you see political flags on people's homes and on their fences. Well, with an HOA, you may not be able to fly your flag. You may be a Steelers fan like myself. Go Steelers. You may be a Steelers fan, and you may want to fly your Steelers flag outside your front door. The HOA may say no flags at all. Political sports or otherwise. We have a no flag policy. When you go to change your siding, or, well, first of all, usually things like siding or roofs, a lot of times that's covered in the HOA, and we'll talk about assessments later. So just know there are rules and restrictions, and people can complain about things you do, like where you put your trash can. All right, so make sure, speaking of HOA fines, take a look at this.
First, the HOA told her her trash cans couldn't be visible from the street.
You have to turn your head so far over like this to see it for the second that you are passing my house.
So she moved them inside.
Which is very hard to get them in and out.
Then the problem was her hose.
It was, all wrapped up. So it really didn't look bad.
Then it was her lawn art.
Can't have those.
Then they wanted her to power wash her house and sweep up her driveway. But when she didn't get it done fast enough, she got late fees on top of late fees. $25 a day for each infraction.
These are things that are so incidental, they're not important. They're asinine. And you're charging me $17,000?
Many of these management companies have people whose job it is to drive around neighborhoods looking for infractions. $15,000.
Yeah, so yeah, there are rules and there are restrictions. I mean, she's complaining about, she was fined up to $17,000. I looked at the whole story and I was like, wow. So that's really, really a lot of money for fines. So keep that in mind. You can be fined by the HOA. So there's governance and decision making. So HOAs are governed by elected board officials, which I just mentioned, board of directors, who make decisions about finances, rules, and community projects. Homeowners typically have voting rights. So what if the board of directors decided they wanted to build a pickleball court, and you don't play pickleball, but yet the HOA fees are going to go up $2 a month? While insignificant, that's still $24 a year going towards a pickleball court that you may never use. See, so these are the kind of things you have to keep that in mind. And the more amenities there are, of course, you damn better know that the more it's going to cost. All right. What are the benefits of living in an HOA? So HOAs can offer benefits like increased property value because they keep the properties up. They make sure that they're desirable, or they're livable, they're walkable, and people want to live in them. So your house, you might have bought it for $320, but because of the HOA alone, it could be worth $500,000 in a matter of a few years. So that's also kind of a benefit. People aren't fixing their cars on the lawn. You don't see car and auto parts or crates or buckets just thrown out throughout the property. People aren't changing their oil in their driveway. People don't have boats parked or campers parked in their driveway because the HOA don't allow it. There's one neighborhood I drove around in Clifton Park. I'm not going to say the name because you may live there, but it was so cluttered and so dirty looking. People didn't power wash their houses. There were broken down cars in the driveway. There was the blacktop on the driveways were cracked and chipped. There were broken down boats. There was broken down pop-up campers, and it just looked cluttered. And I just thought, if this place had an HOA, it would not be like this. So that is an upside. So just know that before you purchase a property in a HOA community, make sure that you review the documents. So now, where can you get those documents? You can get those documents usually on a lot of these HOAs do have websites, and they don't want like hundreds of people a month calling, could you send me a copy? Could you send me a copy? So they just put the PDF right on their website. It'll say rules and governing documents. Click it, you could download it. You can read those before you make an offer on a house. Also, you can, like I said, you can call the office and say, could you send me a copy? Someone in the office will very happily send you a copy of the documents that you'll need to make a decision on buying that home. Ask a lot of questions. There's nothing wrong with calling them up and say, hey, can I ask you a few questions? You usually can get the head of the HOA that will answer your question for you. You can also compare costs from one development to another, so you can determine, is it worth the $150 a month versus this place who's $150 a month. One may offer more than another. So let's look at another video about a guy that had a shed problem.
And some HOAs can be surprisingly aggressive about actively seeking out rule violators, as this man discovered.
3 years after buying this property, the Henrys received a letter from their Homeowners Association
saying that they were doing an audit, and they noticed that I had a shed in my backyard and it wasn't approved by my Homeowners Association.
Gavin, who is a disabled veteran, told the HOA the shed was there before he bought the property, and none of his neighbors have ever complained.
Since you can't see this shed from the front yard and no one came knocking at the Henrys' front door, they asked their Homeowners Association how they were able to perform an audit.
Yeah, so here's a guy who thought it's just a shed. It's okay. I want to put a shed in my backyard. And he got fined for that. So I want to show you how these fines, while they seem minor, I'm going to show you some of the downside. And by the way, I want to preface by saying this is not all homeowners associations, but there are homeowners associations across the country. They're all governed differently. So take a look at this.
The point is, this is a system that can quickly trap people in a vicious cycle of debt. Here's how it works. Let's say you fall behind on HOA payments. You might be charged interest and have to pay additional penalties, but that is just the beginning here. Because once the management company starts pursuing payment, they can involve lawyers whose fees can be astronomical and things can get out of hand fast. Here is the bill of just one 88-year-old homeowner in Texas. She fell ill and was in a nursing home, so she missed an annual dues payment at the start of 2021 of $423. Her HOA then started charging interest and fees for missed payments, and just 5 months later, her bill was already up to $682. But things really started escalating when lawyers' fees started getting introduced, because there are a lot of them. And over the course of just 2 years, she suddenly owed over $8,000, well over half of which was lawyers' fees.
Yeah, so you see how that can get out of hand? So again, usually these people, they don't know the ramifications of these HOAs and what can happen, or if you get financially strapped. So a lot of homeowners that are in these HOAs, if they get financially strapped, they're going to pay their mortgage and they may not pay their HOA fee. Because by the way, you can escrow your taxes and insurance, but you can't escrow your homeowner. So that's out of pocket every month. You have to write a check, or you can write an annual check or a quarterly check to the Homeowners Association. So if you get financially strapped and you're not paying your bills, you might say, I'm not paying HOA this month. Okay. And then you're going to find yourself in a pickle like this.
But sadness turned to anger when she realized the HOA had purchased her home through foreclosure for $3.24 a year before she was evicted.
And if you're wondering why lawyers are even getting involved here, it's because they often come in when HOAs are ready to exercise a truly incredible power that they have over homeowners, which this woman found out about the hard way.
There was a process server who came and knocked on my door and served me with a foreclosure notice.
Maisha had fallen behind on a lot of her bills, but she said she'd work something out with the mortgage company.
But this was the HOA, and I had no idea that an HOA could foreclose on you.
Which is one of those things that sounds ridiculous, but is absolutely true. And to make matters worse, those homes can then be sold at auction, sometimes without the homeowner even realising. Just listen to this woman explain how, despite desperately trying to pay her late HOA fees, she wound up losing everything.
Yeah, so the problems can begin to stockpile. So you can literally go from missing an HOA payment to going in debt with the HOA to literally having a home repoed. Again, that's not across the board. That's not every HOA, but you need to know these things. What if you did not read the governing documents and they did say somewhere there in the fine print that if you don't pay your HOA fees, we can put a lien on your property and ultimately auction it. You have really no recourse because you did not know what was going on with that. We did talk about some pros of homeowners associations, the amenities, the increased property value, the maintenance-free living. So we did talk about the maintenance-free living, them handling like the common areas, far as snow removal, mowing the lawns in the neighborhood, trash removal in the streets, cleaning up the streets. And this alleviates a lot of those burdens from the homeowner. But if you don't need that, if you're a young whippersnapper, or even if you're an old whippersnapper and you are in shape and you don't mind going out and, snow removing your 30 feet of snow, or mowing your, 0.25 acre in your single family home, or whatever it is. You don't really need all of those services. But like I said, some people do work a lot and they can't maintain their house. Some people may have 2 jobs or 3 jobs and they just don't have the time. If that's you, by all means, go ahead and get that. One of the benefits I like about an HOA or a homeowners association is just that sense of community. A lot of you know that I DJ, was one of my side things that I love doing. It's a hobby more than a job. But I recently did a party, a Christmas party for an HOA, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But they invited all the residents to come to the community center, and they did like a white elephant gift giving thing, and I was DJing music there. And guess what? They didn't have to go anywhere. They basically could just leave their house and come down to the community center and have a Christmas party. And that was kind of fun. And people get to know each other. And now you know your neighbors. So I do like that sense of community. So imagine if you're a son or a daughter and you live out of state and you worry about your elderly mom who might live by herself. Man, put her into a development with a homeowners association where she's, especially like the 55 plus communities or the senior communities, where she can be around people and have a sense of community and neighborhood, which is awesome. Another great thing is there is conflict resolution. There's always going to be gray areas where something isn't covered in the bylaws or the governing documents. And a neighbor may complain about another one. Like, can she have that floodlight over her garage into the driveway? I swear, I'm trying to sleep. I live across the street, and every time she drives in, that floodlight, and I'm just using this as an example, this isn't real, but that floodlight shines into my window, and I got to get up and go to work at 3 a.m. Is there anything that we can have her not use that floodlight? And we'll be like, well, they may say, well, it's not really in the rules, so we can't tell her that she can't have that floodlight. But you can take it to conflict resolution, and the board of directors can talk about, are floodlights, are they allowed? Are they permissible in driveways? So there's all kinds of things like that. Like, what if you wanted to have an outdoor, I don't know, birthday party for your kid, and there's a noise ordinance in the community? You may have to go to the board to talk about whether that's going to be permissible or not. So yeah, those are just some of the things about the HOAs. What I do want to talk about now, I took some notes here, is I want to talk about the price and special assessments. So across the country, because my podcast is national, but I pulled a list. The highest average HOA fees in America are in the state of Missouri, Florida, Arizona, Oregon, Colorado, and Maryland. And the highest ones are like $6,000 a year. $6,000 a year, or $470 something a month. But by me just and there was a list of 25 of the highest cost HOAs in the country, but some of them got down to like normal prices, like 200. But I wanted to take a closer look at Florida because one of my friends, he's the one that reached out to me in my mailbag and said, hey, can you do a show on HOAs? And I said, yeah. He goes, because they're getting ridiculous in Florida. So I wanted to put a laser focus on the state of Florida. DeSantis land. All right, so Florida stands out in the HOA landscape. They have some of the highest HOA fees across the country. Florida residents can expect to pay up to $500 per month, according to various sources. So because it's the location, it is a coastal community, has a lot of luxury developments in Florida. Now, I talked about tennis courts and basketball courts in New York, but Florida, some of their developments are golf courses. Some of them are beachfront. So do you mind paying $500 a month if you have a golf course and a beachfront? Or even, I don't know, there's just some luxury developments in Florida that we may not have in New York, so we can't really relate. And it says they have significantly higher fees than inland on the coastal areas, which makes sense. They even have, some of them have marinas, so your HOA covers your marina if you have a boat. Fitness centers, now not little gyms like a hotel, But full fitness centers like Event Fitness or Planet Fitness, they may have something like that. And of course, extensive landscaping because of the will contribute to the higher costs. All right, so I just wanted to point that out. So I did want to talk about assessments. So while you may pay your regular HOA, well, let's talk about the financial health of an HOA. So they got all these fees going into the HOA from the residents every month, right, or every year, quarter, right, and they have a responsibility and an obligation to keep that HOA solvent. They need to have a viable reserve to make sure if anything happens, like a hurricane comes through the development or a tornado or anything that could damage the property, that's not something they should be knocking on doors and saying, well, where's your homeowner's insurance? Because it could have ripped all your siding off the wall, ripped your roof off. Imagine like Katrina, what those HOAs had to do. So these HOAs had to have insurance and a healthy reserve. But here's the thing. Before you buy that property, they don't have to disclose with you the health of the reserves. They tell you we only discuss that with residents. And I can understand one side and the other. Like, why am I giving you confidential information about our reserves when you don't even live here? But on the other end, you may say, I may not want to move there unless I know that the reserves are healthy. So maybe you're going to have to ask some questions, find out from neighbors, friends, knock on some doors, make some phone calls and learn that way. But they're not going to send you a reserve report to let you know the health of the HOA. So it's a little catch-22 there. I did have a customer of mine recently ask, hey, could you find out what the reserves are? So I found this out when I made the phone call. They was like, no, we only give that information to residents. And I was like, makes sense. Now, let's talk about special assessments. So beyond regular HOA fees, HOAs may impose a special assessment for major repairs or unexpected expenses, adding to the financial burden. What does that mean? Let's say they had a board meeting to decide we're going to redo the rooftops across the development in 2028. And we will be taking a special assessment free from all the residents in 2027 or 2026. Now, if you don't know that and you moved in thinking your HOAs was going to be $195 a month, and all of a sudden it hit you 18 months later with, okay, now it's gone up to $400 for special assessment, you're going to be quite surprised. So that's one of the questions you want to ask. Are there any special assessments coming up? And you may say, yeah. Oh, yeah, we're about to redo the siding across the whole development. Or we're putting in a pool, or we're putting in a fitness center. It's going to cost you an extra $36 a month. Whatever that number is, at least you know and you're prepared for it. Rooftops are pretty expensive. Replacing all the siding or painting. We're going to paint all the doors red throughout the development next year. But they already know. It's just that you just bought the house. You just moved in. So you may not have been privy to the information. And that may be something they forgot to share with you when you moved in. It's not a secret. It's not like they're trying to hide. But I'm sure a lot of people move in and out of these condos and developments and they just forget to mention it. So the onus is on you to try and find out if there's any special assessments coming up. All right, so listen, I think that's it. If you have any questions or comments or concerns about HOAs, give me a shout. I did my study. I did my research. I know a lot about them. I can get you information. I'm actually closing on one tomorrow. So I've learned a lot about helping customers with condos and developments with HOAs. We don't have a ton of them up in here in upstate New York, but I'm sure there are states and cities throughout the country where they have a high degree of HOAs. So listen, you guys be good. This was episode 10. Like I said, I love the comments. I love the likes, the subscriptions. Make sure you come and check us out. Other than that, you guys take care. Be out.